Welcome to Inside Politics with Kevin Klein. Beyond the headlines, beyond the spin. Straight facts, sharp analysis, and common sense conversation you won't hear anywhere else. Let's get started.
Welcome to Inside Politics. I'm Kevin Klein. I'm joined today by my colleague at the Winnipeg Sun. He's also a professor of political sciences at the University of Manitoba, Royce Coop. Royce, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to be here.
I want to talk about the new cabinet. Now, yesterday, Prime Minister Carney came out with his new cabinet. I'm really trying inside to give him time to prove himself, right? He won the right to be the prime minister, and I want to be able to give people time because I think we're so quick to react nowadays in politics. The election is what the election is. The people have voted. We have to live with that right now. So I really want to give him time, but I was a little disappointed because I didn't see that senior executive in him by bringing in a whole new cabinet with a lot of energy and a lot of clear mandates.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I had a similar take. I thought that in some ways the kind of executive it was coming through in his decisions. I guess like if you're going into a new management role, it's maybe not a good idea to fire everyone and to replace them. Whereas in politics, sometimes that's probably a good idea. And in this cabinet, what we saw is Mark Carney kept on. Half of the cabinet was there before. They were Trudeau era cabinet ministers, including the biggest names, the people most closely associated with Justin Trudeau, and all of the policy failures of the last 8, 9 years are all still sitting there in cabinet. And so I can see on one hand, Carney is prioritizing experience to some extent. I think that makes sense in some situations, but this is was an opportunity for him to clear house, to have a clean break from Justin Trudeau, to have a clean break from a government that was very unpopular before Trudeau left. And instead, what we got were a lot of the exact same faces. I was really surprised to see that, to be honest.
Well, for people that may be watching the show for the first time or have watched it a few times and not realized, I was a cabinet minister, a provincial cabinet minister under the Progressive Conservative Party in Manitoba, and I really saw the cabinet positions as patronage appointments. They're not necessarily picking the person they feel is best suited for that portfolio. This is patronage appointments. This is a way to thank or acknowledge the support from certain members of your party that were there for you during the campaign to become leader and maybe even afterwards. And I saw a lot of that happening. I think I saw Evan Solomon, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who was fired from the media, went to work at this online organization and has, promptly been put into the role of a cabinet. I'm not saying he's not qualified for that because I really don't know, but I thought that wasn't the executive leadership I was looking for from Carney.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a good example is Sean Fraser, Trudeau cabinet minister, minister of immigration, at the housing minister responsible for two of the biggest policy failures of the Trudeau era, some of the biggest policy areas disasters probably in the history of this country. He was retiring from politics. Carney actually convinced him to run again. He won, and now he's the Minister of Justice. It's I think, the paradigmatic case of failing upwards. And it really kind of raises the question, what you said, Kevin, is there really no one else? Is there really not more talented people out there to actually fill these positions? People that'll bring something new, something innovative, something that we haven't had before? Apparently not. There were some good moves. I want to give him some credit, but you mentioned Evan Solomon. I don't know what qualifications does Evan Solomon bring? We also saw Gregor Robertson, who was mayor of Vancouver while the housing crisis really took off in British Columbia. He's now the housing minister. What was the rationale for this? It's very hard to understand the decisions that he made in this case.
Now, do you think that, and maybe it's me, do you think what's missing is a person a cabinet minister dedicated to the crisis that we're having right now with the United States? I thought this would have been an opportune time to have a cabinet minister specifically focused his or her time 100% on the issues that we're having with the United States. And I didn't see that. I'm a little disappointed in that. I agree. I want to give Carney the benefit of the doubt. I truly do. He's our prime minister now. Whether we like it or not, we have to get behind our prime minister. We have to get behind our political leaders, hold them accountable, but we have to give them a chance to prove themselves. I thought that was a missed opportunity. I thought you would assign one person, even if it was in the secretary role. He appointed 10 different secretaries, something fairly new for prime ministers, but he didn't assign anyone specifically to be the talking head with the United States, be there every day, knocking on the door every day, talking to them every day, fighting for Canada. Is that a missed opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point on the size of the cabinet, before the election, Carney made a big deal about how he had appointed a streamlined cabinet, and now, once you count these new positions, there used to be called parliamentary secretaries. He's called them secretaries of state. The cabinet is just as big, if not bigger, than in the past. So he's doling out favors just like every other prime minister has. Um, in terms of the U.S., there is a new cabinet committee focused on Canadian sovereignty. But yeah, I agree with you. I do have to say that we Anita Anand has moved into the role of Minister of Foreign Affairs. That is a big improvement over the previous minister. I can't remember her first name.
Melanie.
Yeah, Jolie. Big improvement. Serious person, one of the better, not the best communicator, but I think one of the more high performing ministers from the Trudeau era that again, Carney had to convince to run again. She wasn't going to run again. Carney had to convince her to run again. And so that's probably good for the relationship with the United States. But yeah, I mean, I would have also liked to see more thinking outside the box, someone that is, going to be focusing solely on this. We do have a new cabinet committee that's going to be doing that, but I think one kind of point person that would have made a lot of sense, and we didn't see that. I think we also need to talk about what's happening in terms of Western Canada. The city of Winnipeg has, for the first time in a long time, there's not going to be a single cabinet minister from the city of Winnipeg. He gave Terry Duguid the boot after a month as a minister. It's kind of seems pretty cold to me, but uh, Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, Calgary, the some of the fastest growing, most important cities, metropolitan areas in Canada do not have a single cabinet minister. Compare that to Brampton, Ontario, one city which has three cabinet ministers, three of them from one city, and we don't have a single one from the any of the major prairie cities, with the exception of Edmonton. I don't know who advised him on that, but I think that's a major concern moving forward.
And I'd like to point out that all those that say there is no division, there is no separatism happening within our country, you're absolutely wrong. That's my opinion. I think you're absolutely wrong because exactly what you just laid out for us, Royce, is why Alberta, Saskatchewan, and others are talking about separating. They're talking about having that voice because or vote because they don't have a voice at the table. And having two, did you say two cabinet ministers from Brampton? Uh,
Three,
three,
three
three
from
cabinet
one
ministers.
city in Ontario.
Yeah, so you have three from one city, and you only have one from Alberta, which is the province pumping in all the money. I mean, you're basically setting yourself up for fail. And I guess this, I'll go back to what I said before. Carney played on the fact that he's a successful business person. He's got degrees in economics. He knows how to invest money. He knows how to run a business. This is not how I believe you run that business. He should have reached out to Western Canada more. I honestly thought we were going to have some more cabinet ministers from Western Canada than we did. I actually thought that would have been a great sign. That would have been Carney saying, look, I'm going to work with you. You're going to be a part of my team. You're going to do it my way, but I'm going to work with you. I'm going to give you a seat at the table. That didn't happen. The other thing that I think is missing from this guy who claims to be, a super economist, successful business person, no clear directive for any of these cabinet ministers or secretaries of state. There's no clear directive. There's no way to measure their success. And if you can't measure somebody, you can't manage them.
Yeah.
And you should know that because that's management 101. He's not doing that. Where's the accountability? These are all like when I was in politics, and maybe I was a patronage appointment, probably was, right? Because I came in, it was a by-election, they had to win the seat. So of course they wanted to give me a cabinet spot. But I think they're given out for all the wrong reasons. I think you have to give them to people that are qualified, and I'm still struggling, still struggling. I don't see a lot of people qualified to be in the roles that they're in.
Yeah, and the question of expectations is going to become really important. Evan Solomon is now the Minister of AI. Well, what does that mean? What is he going to accomplish in that role? We have no idea.
He's
Um,
gonna put it into chat and find out.
yeah, actually, that sounds like a pretty good job. You just
Yeah.
get Chat GPT to do your job for you. But Gregor Robertson is the housing minister. Someone asked him today what he's going to do, and in the role, and his response was that we need more social housing. We need more government-built housing in this country. That was it. That that was the entirety of his answer. Uh, Mark Carney's government is supposed to be a clean break, and that's the response of his housing minister. The idea that we're going to solve the housing crisis in this country through governments building houses exclusively. There's a role for social housing. There's a role for low income housing. There's a role for affordable housing that the government builds and maintains. But give me a break. We're not going to get close to solving the housing crisis in this country if there's not real market-oriented solutions. And it seems from the first couple of interviews that Carney's new housing minister doesn't agree. He's going to be focused on building social housing rather than large-scale market solutions to this crisis. We're not going to get an answer to this.
No, I think that we're still going to be in a housing crisis for some time. Tell me, because you did mention it earlier, and so did I. I want to give Carney a chance. What bright lights do we see with these cabinet appointments? So where is their hope right now?
I think I mentioned Anita Anand moving to foreign affairs. It's a big improvement. That's kind of a criticism of the previous minister, who I don't think was very effective. It was a good move. She's as I said, not the best communicator, but I think a good performing minister. I think one of the problems with this cabinet is that we promoted people who might actually be kind of good communicators, but they're not going to actually be good ministers, and that's the wrong approach. Carney should be prioritizing results rather than style. We want the steak, not the sizzle. One other thing is Tim Hodgson is a new member of parliament. He went directly into cabinet. He had very extensive financial corporate executive experience. He's the new natural resources minister. That's a good appointment. I think most people thought that he was going to go into cabinet. He has some experience working with Carney as well prior to government. I think he'll be a good minister. The fact that Carney dropped Jonathan Wilkinson is a good thing. This was a minister that was just pointlessly antagonistic with Alberta, with people that are in favor of resource development. The fact that he kept Stephen Guilbeault in the cabinet is a disaster. I have no clue what this guy is doing. There's actually good MPs elected by the Liberals from Quebec. Keeping him in the cabinet is just kind of shocking, to be honest. I'm really surprised he did that, and it'll be problematic for him moving forward. On the resource development side, we do have some new ministers here, and so we want to kind of give him a little bit of time. I'm not totally optimistic thus far, but we'll give them time to see what comes out of that. I'm not sure we're going to get any pipelines built, but we'll see.
How much time do we give? That's where I wanted to go in our last little bit here. How much time do we give? Because as an executive, myself, owning a company, you give people time. You have to give people time to do their job. You have to give people time to succeed. You have to give them the support to succeed. You have to give them the tools to succeed. How much time does Carney give each one of these cabinet ministers to perform? Because that will dictate how much time they have in power, if you will. I mean, I think that the right now, sadly, and I disagree with both of them. The conservatives and the liberals are talking about giving the NDP, official party status. We keep moving the bar for politicians downward. We
Yeah,
keep moving the bar upwards for people that aren't in politics, and I think that's wrong. Rules are rules are rules. That's why we have laws.
yeah,
We have to follow the rules. They didn't make official party status. It is what it is, and they shouldn't get it again. They should be left where they are. But that aside, how much time do you give? Because I think people are watching closely. I mean, Pierre Poilievre is going to be a while before he gets into the parliament. You've got Andrew Scheer, who's a seasoned guy. He's going to be able to hold Carney accountable. He's going to be able to play that game very well. But Carney is supposed to be an executive, a very smart man when it comes to business. How long does he wait? Because I can tell you, if he made $100 billion investment in a company and people weren't even working towards the objectives that they put forward, he'd
yeah.
put money or he'd fire all the people. Will he do that when it comes to destroying Canada?
Yeah, so he basically has a year where he can do what he wants to. The Bloc has said they're not going to vote to defeat the government for at least a year, and probably longer. The NDP is in really no position to defeat the government, but I think that he has a year to kind of do what he wants to direct and to look at what he gets out of these ministers. Um, a big question here is he going to fire ministers? A feature of modern Canadian politics is that ministers never leave. It doesn't matter how well you do or how badly you do, you're just there forever. And we saw that under Trudeau. There were ministers that clearly should have been fired. Some of them eventually were. They're kind of shuffled out of cabinet. But if Carney is as much of an executive, if he's as results oriented as he claims he is, he'll hold ministers accountable. And if they don't produce, he should probably replace them. I'm not really sure that's going to happen. I mean, I think a really important thing that people aren't paying attention to right now is that all of the things that kind of wrecked Justin Trudeau's popularity, all of the things that just dragged him into the basement, cost of living, inflation, affordability, home prices, problems with the immigration system, they're still there. They haven't been fixed. And so there's no reason to think that they're not going to eventually kind of wreck Carney's popularity as well. And so if we don't see real action on this stuff pretty quickly, we could see this government just absolutely fall in terms of its popularity. It could be a disaster pretty quickly. Every Canadian that was suffering a year ago is still suffering today. And in most cases, it's going to be worse. Now we've got tariffs. Now we've got Trump as well. And so the prime minister needs to act quickly, his cabinet needs to act quickly, and if not, we could see the Liberal Party facing a reckoning pretty quickly.
But I'm wondering if the other parties will actually bring them down, right? Because they only need a couple of NDP supporters to hold them up. That's all they need. Three
Yeah,
of them. That's all they need. They need three people from the NDP out of their seven to say, yeah, I'm not going to bring down the government. I'm not ready to lose my job. I'm not ready to get back out there on the street and fight. I think the NDP is going to want to wait until they have a leadership, contest and they pick a leader. And then of course we've got Polyev that wants to get in there and change his image, which may or may not be a good thing. Time will tell, right? We don't want him to change entirely, but he does have to change. So I think you're right. I think Carney has some time to show what he's made of. I hope that he does. You have to, again, I fall back onto his business background. That's what I thought was going to come to the forefront after the election. I really thought now we're going to see the executive out of Carney, right? Not the politician, because I'm a big
yeah,
fan of not having politicians keep running for politics. I like the fact that we bring business people in from outside of politics to run the country differently. I just don't think I saw it with his cabinet appointments. I really want to give him time, but I need to see those kinds of changes. I need to see us focused on the
yeah.
issues at hand, and make those priorities, whether it's three at a time, pick the top three, focus on them and fix them, or it's two or it's one, it doesn't matter. But if we're going to get into, oh, we're going to do something for everybody and give a little bit of money to everybody, you're right. We're going to have another 9 years of what we just had, Trudeau 2.0. And I myself, I don't think Mark Carney wants to be remembered as Trudeau 2.0.
I don't think anyone wants to be remembered that way.
So the ball's in his court, though, right? It's in his court, and he has to make these changes, and hopefully those changes will come. What do you expect is going to happen with the first ministers' meeting coming up? Do you think they will walk out of there with a trade pact for all across Canada?
No, no, no. I think there are things that you can do. Interprovincial trade barriers are they're a tougher issue than people realize. There's a reason that those barriers are there. Usually for quite parochial political reasons. The maritime provinces in particular like to protect, interests within their own provinces. There's things that can be done to get rid of those barriers. We should do everything we can, but they've been there a long time. They're complex, and it's not, the government can only do so much on some of these things. So definitely we should get rid of these things as much as we can, while also being realistic about it. I don't know. I mean, I think that the premiers are reasonable people. Uh, I think they'll want to work with the new prime minister. They're not gonna lose it right out of the gate. I think Alberta has legitimate concerns. Alberta and Saskatchewan in particular, they've had years of frustration with a federal government that has basically blocked their aspirations, and they're not unreasonable. The ability to ship Alberta energy products to markets other than the United States, that's not an unreasonable ask. And the whole reason we have a federal government is, well, not the whole reason, but part of the reason we have a federal government is to bring these kinds of projects, when there's conflict between provinces, when you can't get agreement, the federal government does need to kind of come in and have a strong hand and ensure that these things happen. I'm not convinced they are going to happen under Carney, but it's not going to take long for Danielle Smith for Alberta to figure that out. And it could be quite something. We could actually have a national unity crisis in this country in the years ahead, just not in Quebec, in Alberta. And so that's going to be something that Carney has to deal with. Is he equipped to deal with that? I don't know about that.
But I think it's something that we all have to stop and take note of and go, these are very scary times for our country right now. We're not battling the US anymore. That's who we should be fighting right now. We should be fighting for our economy. We should be creating jobs. We should have salespeople knocking on doors of every manufacturer in the US saying, hey, come on up here, we'll give you a better deal. Or talking to countries abroad. Come on over here, we'll give you a better deal. Let us sell you our oil. We're not doing any of that. We're still focused on the same old stuff that we were 4, 5, 10 months ago, and that's not going to be helpful for us, my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Western separatist sentiment, who does it ultimately hurt? It hurts the Conservative Party. And so, it, I think the Westerners need to give federal politics another chance. I mean, if the Conservative Party is a pretty strongly pro-development party, pro-resource development party, they have to kind of invest effort into electing a pro-development party rather than looking inwards. It wasn't that long ago the West did that. They looked inwards. They created their own party, which is, it's been good in some ways in the long term, but it also led to 15 years of liberal government as we saw vote splits and Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin, laugh their way to the bank. They could win elections no problem on that basis. So I'm very cautious about this stuff. I think if you're concerned about these sorts of things, conservatives need to fight these battles in the Conservative Party rather than looking at other options. But it's very hard to control this stuff. It's working with nitroglycerin. It could explode in your hands. You don't know what's going to come of it.
Very true. What do we anticipate this week? We'll wrap it up here. Are we looking for anything big to come out of this week? I'd like to see a regular update, a weekly update from our Prime Minister on what's happening with trade negotiations with the United States. I don't want to find out about it from X or whatever from Donald Trump. I want to see our government communicate directly to Canadians. I prefer they not do it on X because they're supposed to be supporting Canadian companies. I
Yeah.
prefer they send out messages through the media. I prefer all media just report the facts, but I'd like to see a weekly update. It doesn't matter to me what it says on the update. Give me a transparent report on what's happening with negotiations with the United States. So, Prime Minister Carney, that's what a leader does, in my opinion. That's what you want to do as an executive is tell people how you're doing. How's it going on the gridiron? Are you gaining yardage? Are you losing yardage? How far are you from a touchdown? You need to tell people because we don't need Trump coming out at the end of the day on X saying that he's made the greatest deal in the world and we find out about it that way. We need to know and we need to be a part of that. So I hope to see that in the coming weeks, and something that I hope on our show that we're going to follow because I'm hearing nothing,
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, Carney, I think it's fair to say, doesn't have the most open communication style either. During the campaign, it was pretty disciplined. He actually suspended his campaign 3 times. It's the shortest campaign allowed by law, and he suspended his campaign 3 times to go back to Ottawa and kind of cloister with his ministers.
But assign
Um,
somebody, right? Royce, just assign somebody to be your communications person for U.S. negotiations. That's all you need. Like somebody so like you or I or whatever, just somebody that can fill in the Canadian people on a regular basis with what's going on in the United States. What's the biggest fear in the world? The unknown.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I fear most.
Yeah, he should also reconvene Parliament. I think, I guess that's probably not going to happen now until the fall, but if that could happen, Parliament has been closed now, prorogued for quite a long time. If he were
I
to
thought they
open
were
it,
going back on the 29th.
oh, I might have missed that.
Yeah.
I think if that's the case, that's great. I'd like to see that. I think Parliament needs to be in session, because that's when you get a lot of that communication. You get accountability in question period. So if that's happening, good. That's a good thing.
Okay. All right. Well, we got lots to watch for our next episode. Thank you very much for watching today. Please like and follow this page. Tell your friends about it. Share the video if you'd like. And if there's some thoughts or some issues you think that our panel should be looking into, leave that in the messages down below. Believe it or not, I read all the messages, the good, the bad, the ugly. So please leave your messages, and that might help us discover a topic that is important to you. Royce, thank you very much for your time, and we'll talk to you later on this week.
See you then.
Thanks for watching Inside Politics with Kevin Klein. Please like and subscribe to this channel and visit thewinnipegssun.com for more.